I know several people next door that lost their homes totally.
A wildfire the likes of which Boulder County has never seen. Homes in ruins, thousands evacuated.
We loaded up 2 cars, got our dog and left.
Troopers investigate a crash that killed a Commerce City police officer as well as a 31-year-old woman.
It was her car. It was mangled and crushed, her little car.
Colorado among dozens of states where cases of coronavirus are spiking. What it means for our hospitals and what you need to know ahead of the holidays.
You need to prepare for at least 2 weeks in advance for everybody in that gathering to essentially be quarantined.
And seniors at this North Glen apartment complex say they've never been behind on their rent. Management claims they're overdue by 2 years.
No, we may be elderly, but we're not stupid.
Those stories and much more as a special 1-hour edition of Denver7 News at 6 begins right now. And we begin tonight in Boulder County, where thousands of people are out of their homes because of the Calwood and Left Hand Canyon fires.
And sadly, some will not have a home to return to. At least 27 buildings now have burned. In fact, everybody living in Jamestown and Ward has been evacuated. Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson monitoring conditions. Jessica Porter is here with how you can help the victims.
And we will hear from them in just a moment. First, let's go to Ivan Rodriguez, who's out there on the fire lines. Ivan?
And Shannon, good evening. As the sun begins to set over the mountains, you can still see some smoke of the Calwood fire behind me. And even from where I'm standing, I'm beginning to see for the first time today some flames near the top of the ridge. All day, people have been coming to the area where I'm standing now with binoculars and cameras, trying to see if their homes are safe.
So there's a truck that's just parked below my house and my neighbor's house.
Andrew Ainsley has kept a close eye on the fire line near his home.
You can see the fire line just above it, like 50 feet above it.
On Saturday afternoon,
the fire guy just drove through to check on our spot.
Andrew and his wife were forced to evacuate their home as clouds of smoke from the Calwood fire were overhead.
On Saturday night, we thought we'd lost our homes because we were watching from the south. And we just couldn't see how our homes would survive.
For now, their home looks like it will pull through, thanks to firefighting efforts on the ground and in the air. But for dozens of others, it's a different story.
It's really hard. Mostly I just feel for these people right now because I think we're going to be okay, but these poor families.
Leading many to wonder if they would consider rebuilding after already living through so many wildfires.
If God forbid I lose my house, would I rebuild? And I don't know the answer to that. If all the trees are gone and living in fear every year, every time there's a windstorm, and there's lots of wind up here, looking up at the mountain now and the plumes of smoke, and just very nervous.
The cause of this fire remains under investigation. Again, people waiting behind this fence, looking on, still waiting to see if there's going to be any answers for when and if they can return home. Live in Boulder County, Ivan Rodriguez, Denver7.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. And former Vice President Joe Biden tonight calling Colorado's fires a sign of things to come if we do not curb the impact of climate change. Biden also thanked first responders for their hard work and said he and Jill are keeping Coloradans in their thoughts.
Low humidity, high winds, very little rain, making containing the fires that much more difficult this week. Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson with that tonight. Mike.
Let me show you this view from our camera up in Westminster. That is the smoke plume coming over the Boulder area and along the Front Range, very visible at sunset. And these are the current winds. Fortunately, the gusts have dropped off a little bit in most areas, but still 19 miles per hour. Estes Park 39 at Berthoud Pass. We're still seeing some of those strong gusty winds up into the foothills. And on radar, there's a little bit of the smoke plume showing up still off to the west of us, mixed with some high clouds. Air quality advisories all along the I-25 corridor and the surrounding counties. Fire weather warning for tomorrow down in the Collegiate Peaks area. But the weather headlines have a little good news. Not much moisture in the short term. Elevated fire danger for a while. Poor air quality, but a colder storm will arrive over the weekend that could produce several inches of snow over some of these fires, and that would be very helpful. I'll have the details on that coming up in just a few more minutes.
All right, Mike, thank you. And now to Denver7's Jessica Porter and how you can help the victims of these fires. And Jessica, a lot of people asking what they can do for their friends and neighbors in Boulder County right now.
And so many of our viewers have reached out to us wanting to help families who've been impacted, as well as those on the front lines of these wildfires. And with so many fires burning in different counties, here's a look at a few different ways you can help. As the wildfires continue to encroach on denser foothill residential communities, new GoFundMe accounts are popping up to help. Family are raising money for Courtney and Todd Walsh. They had only half an hour to evacuate before the fire took their Boulder home. And a Longmont couple has already exceeded their $2,000 goal. They made it out safely, but their cat and all their belongings are gone. More than 500 horses were evacuated to the Boulder County Fairgrounds Saturday. So many they had to turn trailers away.
There's no question, just from what we saw yesterday, that there's probably so many houses that are gone now.
The Larimer County Fairgrounds took in over 200 horses. They have a GoFundMe to help with supplies. And the Community Foundation Boulder County has a list of local nonprofits you can donate to. The Cameron Peak fire has been burning for 2 months, but has been the biggest danger to structures in the last week. The United Way of Larimer County has set up a fund to help.
Replacing people's tools and equipments that were lost in barns and homes and cars and trucks that were lost in the fire. We were able to support some veterans with rebuilding efforts. We helped with debris removal.
You can donate online or text Larimer United to 41444.
All of those proceeds will be distributed to people affected by the fire, and that will happen probably in the coming months rather than this week or next week.
I have put a link to all of those individual funds on the denverchannel.com. And we know with so many ways to give, it can be overwhelming trying to figure out the right way. So we have a Denver7 Gives, that is a Denver7 Gives fund. We're working with our community partners to ensure every single dollar raised goes directly to wildfire victims here in Colorado. Just visit our website, click on Denver7 Gives, and in the drop-down menu, select Help Colorado Wildfire Victims. Shannon?
All right, Jessica Porter tonight. Thank you, Jess. And yet another fire breaking out this evening. This is near Silverton in the San Juans. The Forestry Service says this one's bringing in some heavy timber right at the Ice Lake trailhead. In fact, campers and hikers there have been evacuated.
Nearly 1,100 additional cases of coronavirus confirmed in Colorado tonight, and making matters worse, Mondays tend to be one of our better days. 465 hospital beds are occupied by patients suspected or confirmed to have the virus. It was May the last time we hit a number that high. 9 more people have died. More than 2,000 have been lost since March. And high schoolers in Aurora will not return to in-person classes until at least mid-November. Preschool and middle have been in the building since last week, and Aurora is now considering pulling them out and returning to online only.
El Paso County tonight said it could take a big step backward if the COVID numbers don't start coming down. Right now, positivity rate in the Springs, 4.93%. Communities must be below 5% to keep restaurants and businesses at the current capacities.
Aurora is expected to ban the use of no-knock warrants tonight. City Council needs one more vote to make it official. While highly publicized since the death of Breonna Taylor, no-knock warrants are rare. Police Chief Vanessa Wilson, who supports keeping the tactic on the books, says it provides an element of surprise that gives officers the upper hand. Opponents, like Councilwoman Angela Lawson, believe no-knock warrants pose an unacceptable risk to officers and bystanders alike.
You will find no arguments against 2 measures, including Denver Public Schools, that include Denver Public Schools in this year's Blue Book, but that doesn't mean there isn't opposition. Denver7 political reporter Megan Lopez explains.
It's almost like clockwork. Every 4 years for more than a decade, voters in Denver have been asked to pass a new bond to fund schools. And each time,
Denver supports our educators and our education system.
Once again this November, voters are being asked to provide more funding for DPS. Measure 4A is a mill levy override or a tax increase which would go to salaries, bringing in full-time nurses and more.
Right now, we're about $13.50 per hour is roughly our minimum wage. This will get us up to just north of $15 and I believe 77 cents for our minimum wage.
Meanwhile, Measure 4B is a $795 million bond that would fund construction projects and repairs to schools.
A significant amount of money going towards maintenance, also cutting in nearly half the number of schools without air conditioning in the district.
One of the biggest promises is a new Montbello High School campus.
To me, the numbers don't make sense.
Bernard Douthit has voted for every bond measure DPS has brought up in recent history, but this time around,
there comes a point when you just have to say no. I think DPS needs to take a closer look at their long-term cost structure.
It's unfortunate.
Former DPS teacher Julie Banuelos also opposes the funding.
What I'm saying to our voters is This is not a no on our children. This is not a no on our schools. This is a no on the fiduciary tactics that the senior admin is engaging in right now.
They say there are cuts the district can make on the administrative side to save money before asking taxpayers for more. But supporters say this money will help students and teachers.
This is a way to show that that we really do value education and that we do want our students to have the best educational experience that they can have.
Ultimately, it will be up to voters to decide on more funding for DPS. Megan Lopez, Denver7.
And this year's ballot resembles a final exam of a college civics course. So lucky for us, Megan and the folks on our digital team have put together a cheat sheet, if you will, and you can find that right now on thedenverchannel.com.
Coming up, residents accuse a North Glen apartment complex of tricking them into paying more in rent.
I don't owe this and I'm not paying it.
Plus, the Broncos have dispatched the Pats. Up next, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.